Hello, you're watching Tell It Like It Is, and my name is Kathy Benuck. Today, our show is titled Race for County Attorney, and it's actually a three-part series with the candidates for this year's race for the Hillsborough County Attorney's Office. As I mentioned, three candidates, incumbent County Attorney Dennis Hogan, who's a Republican, and he has two Democratic challengers, Attorney Patricia LaFrance and Attorney Bob Walsh. And my guest today, right now, is Attorney Bob Walsh of Manchester, who, as I mentioned, is one of the two Democrats who will be in the primary election. Now, Bob received his bachelor's degree from Colby College in Maine in 1975, and then he went to work as a legislative assistant in Washington, D.C. To Congressman Norman Demours, and monitored federal funding for New Hampshire's first congressional district, which is us. And then he earned his Juris Doctor law degree from Suffolk University in 1981, and then began serving as a law clerk to the court justices in the New Hampshire Superior Court system. He then went back to school and earned his LLM advanced law degree from BU School of Law in 1983. Now, in 1982, he became an assistant county attorney and a prosecutor with the Hillsborough County Attorney's Office, a position that he actually held until 1989. And in that position, he tried to conviction, and I stress that, to conviction, over 100 cases involving crimes against children, drug distribution, violent crimes, and negligent homicide. As I mentioned, he stayed there till 1989, at which point he went into private practice. In 2008, he did make a little quick run for public office when he was a candidate for the New Hampshire House of Reps. But in November 2000...
That was my dad.
Oh, that was his dad. Well, I'm glad he just corrected me. Good. You know, this is the second time I got caught today.
We have the same name, and it's common.
Well, in November 2009, no, this was you.
Yes.
He was elected by the state delegation from Hillsborough County to county attorney to complete the term of County Attorney Marguerite Wagling when she resigned from office. And as chief prosecutor, he supervised 23 county attorneys and assistant county attorneys and 30 support staff. In 2010, he did seek re-election to that office, but lost to the now incumbent county attorney Dennis Hogan, and he's now opposing Dennis. In 2011, he returned full-time to his Manchester law practice, where he specializes in litigation. Now, I want to tell you a little bit more about Bob. He's been very involved in several activities. And from 1984 to 1987, he served as president of the New Hampshire Association of County Prosecutors. In 1984, was chairman of the Hillsborough County Attorney's Task Force on Crimes Against Children. In 2009, he was appointed by the United States Attorney to a federal state task force on Project Safe Neighborhoods, and he served on that until 2011. From 2009 to 2011, he served on an oversight panel for mental health court implementation in the state's district courts, and that was through the Community Connections program. And then in 2010, he was appointed by Governor Lynch to the Commission to Evaluate DWI Education and Intervention Programs, and that group was tasked with proposing revisions to state statutes to the New Hampshire House and Senate members. He's been extensively involved in giving educational presentations on many, many legal topics such as criminal procedure, domestic violence, malpractice risks, using experts in civil jury trials, advocacy training, and even law in the media, to groups as diverse as the American Psychiatric Association, the New Hampshire Bar Association, and the New England Association of Risk Managers. He's admitted to the bar in New Hampshire, Maine, and Massachusetts, the U.S. District Court, District of New Hampshire, District of Massachusetts, and District of Maine, U.S. Tax Court, and the U.S. Court of Appeals First Circuit. In his extracurricular time, if you can believe he has any, he is very active with the Ancient Honor of Hibernians, with the New Hampshire Society of the Sons of the American Revolution, for whom he served as first vice president and chancellor, and he is also active with the Professional Ski Instructors of America, with which he has a Level 1 certification. And since I can't ski to save myself, I think we'll get friendly.
Come on out.
Anyway, it's a pleasure to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me,
Thank you
Kathy.
for coming.
Look forward to it.
Thank you for coming. And how's the campaign going?
The campaign is going well.
Yeah.
Things get quiet during the summertime, or
Yes.
quieter, and then
Yes.
we have a burst of activity after Labor Day. So we are proceeding well.
And the primary's September 11th.
Oh, what a day. Huh?
I know, crazy day. Crazy day. Well, now for almost a decade, you were a county prosecutor, and then you served briefly as county attorney for, about a year and a half. Tell us about all that and what kind of experiences you had, because, I mean, that's a tough job. And you kind of get to see the worst in society, but occasionally the best in society, the heroes among us.
You do get to see the worst in society. There are no cases tougher to deal with for law enforcement and prosecutors than those that abuse people who cannot take care of themselves. Children, the elderly, the mentally impaired. And those are the toughest crimes. So we have our violent crimes we have to deal with, and the drug problem continues. It has not abated in the 30 years that I've been practicing law in New Hampshire. And these are issues that plague society. They plague us in our safety, and they plague us in our pocketbooks because the tax dollar is used for the courts and for the facilities to incarcerate people. So I have had the broad spectrum of dealing with all of these kinds of cases, both as the active prosecutor and as the county attorney. And I feel that my experience puts me in a spot to evaluate the management of the office and to do it. I particularly think the Hillsborough County Attorney is in a unique position in New Hampshire law enforcement. And that is because we are the largest county in the state. We're a third of the state's population. And unfortunately, much of the violent crime happens here. We have the state's two largest cities and 29 towns, each with different characteristics. But just by being the county attorney, or DA, a lot of people don't know what the county attorney is, believe it or not. The county attorney is the district attorney. New Hampshire doesn't do things like everybody else does.
That's right. That's right.
I do have the experience to do that, and I have worked in all of these different areas that comprise the job. And I want to tell you that that election by the state reps was one of the most interesting experiences any politician or any law enforcement official could go through.
Now, there were several people in that, correct?
There are 123 state reps.
And how many people were trying to be elected by them? Weren't there like 4, 5, 6
or
or something?
Yeah,
that many?
Yeah,
6 or 8?
Yeah,
Wow.
I think,
Wow.
as I recall, yes. And I had the opportunity to go around and talk to these state reps individually, both Democrats and Republicans, and I came away with a feeling of frustration with the system, that the system is a little outdated and doesn't keep up with our needs of society, and also that it's expensive to run. Particularly, people on both sides of the aisle are looking for alternatives to incarcerating people because of the huge expense of incarcerating prisoners. And the county pays for those.
Yes, they do.
So that experience of going and talking to the state reps, who are really on the ground level, you know, each community has their own state reps, and these are people who usually have a pretty good feel for what's going on and what the people in the communities are thinking and feeling. So that was a huge advantage to me, and it has given me a propensity to accept the need for change and try new things in the system.
And you had the first hand right from the get-go to be able to talk to them before they actually elected you.
That's right. That's right. You're right. Well, you know, I was going around asking for their votes, but I was also listening.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Now, what made you decide at this point to now challenge Dennis Hogan? He's only been in for, what, not quite 2 years.
Right.
So what
Right.
made you decide, what was your impetus this
Well,
time?
I think my experience is greater, and I don't wish to run a negative campaign. I'm going to talk about my positives. My positives are experience, time in the courtroom, time in front of juries, and time dealing with law enforcement officials. Everyone from the Attorney General's office to the local police, both chiefs and crews. And we get a wide variety of opinions, but it's very important.
Now, what would be your criticism, that you think he hasn't dealt enough with the police, or that he wasn't a prosecutor?
He's not a prosecutor, and I'm not. I don't want to criticize.
No.
I
mean, any candidate is.
Sure.
It's legitimate to say this is why I'm running.
I have more experience.
Without being negative.
I have more experience.
All right. Okay.
I'm very happy to say that.
Okay. Now, you did serve, obviously, as county attorney for over a year, and what was close to about a year and a half, right?
About a year and a half. Yeah.
So that didn't give you a whole lot of time, to make
Right,
changes.
correct.
But do you think there are changes that you believe need to be made to the county attorney's office that you'd want to look at if you were elected this time?
The changes that I would focus on are not so much the internal changes in the county attorney's office, but the external changes in the criminal justice system.
Okay. Now, what do you mean by that? By getting some legislative changes defining different crimes, or
Well,
what?
yes,
Okay.
always working with the legislators.
Okay.
Let them know what our office is dealing with and how we deal with it. Feedback to the legislators on their ideas, their proposals. Give them our own proposals, see if there's a common ground, if there's a meeting ground. I would say the area that I'm proudest of for the work that I did while I was county attorney was in the development of the mental health courts within the district court system.
Okay.
This is innovative.
Now that is
And I'm
new,
not,
right? That's
it
not
is
some.
new.
Okay.
It is new, and
Okay.
by no means am I responsible for it. I was just one player, but I felt that the work we did there was tremendously important. And
Now,
the
can you explain that a little bit? Does that mean that if somebody has a mental health issue, there's actually a different kind of setup for them, or judges trained to deal with that more so, or what exactly does that mean?
In 2009, the federal government did a study in the state of New Hampshire on how the criminal justice system was working.
Okay.
And as part of that process, they interviewed the chiefs of police and meetings with them. And the meetings resolved in 2 points. The two biggest, or 1 point, the two biggest problems that the chiefs of police feel they're facing in New Hampshire today are drugs and mental health.
Okay.
Now,
Which could be intertwined sometimes,
and
actually.
absolutely
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely are. Ironically, some of the medications that are used to treat mental health problems have street value.
Yeah.
So, the Hillsborough County Attorney can't control the national drug problem.
No, of course not.
That's supply and demand and at the congressional level. But the idea of using this alternative mental health court to deal with people who have committed less serious crimes and are better served by close supervision and community treatment,
Okay.
or treatment in the community rather than treatment while incarcerated.
Now, does this mean halfway houses or
It can mean-
outpatient
it
clinics,
can
or
mean-
combination of
It
everything?
can be a combination of anything,
Okay.
depending on the individual's needs and background.
Okay.
There are several all up and running in the state. Probably the leading one is in Nashua, New Hampshire. Judge Jim Leary has been innovative and persistent in establishing this court. He works closely with probation, parole, and Department of Corrections, and the court liaison officer who is dealing directly with the individuals.
Okay.
Now, the typical individual has to, one, have a mental health problem, and two, be accepted into the program, which has various criteria. It's a monitoring program.
Okay.
The individual has to report. The individual has to submit to drug tests when requested.
Now, how often do things like that happen? I mean, do they report daily, weekly, monthly? What?
Usually weekly.
Weekly?
Usually weekly until there is, unless there's a problem.
Okay.
Or if someone has established a track record of doing well, the court officer may say, we'll see you in 2 weeks, we'll see you in a month.
Yeah. So it's not, I mean, what I was trying to arrive at, it's not like 6 months or a year or something.
No, it is a closely monitored system. They have to participate in their mental health care treatment, even if that's at the community mental health center. Private, those who have private insurance, of course, can go to their own physicians, or the halfway residence is important, as you mentioned, halfway houses, and the program has had a great success rate. Excuse me, please.
Oh, of course.
Excuse me, much better. The program has had a great success rate.
So they are tracking all the stats with it? Yeah.
Right. And so I do think this is a very feasible way to deal with that section of the population that somehow can't seem to get out of its own way, is committing petty crimes, and is amenable to treatment in the community at less cost than being inside the house. And being inside the house has its own problems. As the commissioner used to say, if you don't have anxiety and depression when you get here, you will when you leave. So it is, if we as a society can deal with these people, these down and outs, through mental health treatment, outside the facility, keep them working. In many cases, employment is the huge part of their rehabilitation. Everybody
So
wins.
this program's not for the hardcore, you know, the drug dealers, the people out there doing the really horrific stuff?
No.
Okay.
No, this program may be for somebody who has a drug problem and goes shoplifting or does stupid things rather than heinous crimes. And all crimes are crimes. There is, but
Well, yeah, but there's shades too.
There are shades. There are definite shades.
Yeah, there are definitely shades.
Yes, and the prosecutor has
I mean,
to
holding a
recognize
gun
that.
to
The
somebody's
judge
head
recognizes
is one thing,
Right.
and accidentally killing somebody in a car accident is another thing.
Yes,
But
it is.
the person's still dead, but there's obviously shades there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. All right. Do you think, well, you sort of touched on this a little bit because of the fact, I mean, obviously Hillsborough County has the state's two biggest cities, Nashua and Manchester. So, I mean, I would guess that you would answer yes when I say to you, does the Hillsborough County Attorney's Office differ from other county attorney offices? Probably just, if no other reason, than the sheer volume of the cases, the number of cases coming through. Correct?
The size would be the biggest one.
Yeah. Do you think there are other differences as well?
There are some minor ones in that the different regions of New Hampshire are dealing with different populations, smaller populations, more homogeneous populations, but they get their fair share of crime too. Unfortunately, we are not the bucolic state, that we were 30 years ago.
Now, this, I don't know if this is an off-the-wall question or not, but Manchester and Nashua would have been, or I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but haven't they been impacted more by refugee populations and immigration and such, that there'd be, if nothing else, maybe more language challenges?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the number of languages at Central High School now are in the 20s.
That many?
These are the languages that students speak in their homes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
That many.
So the
It's
court
a-
system
it's a
almost have
huge-
to have that many people that can communicate, right?
Well, the court system, yes, and of course that requires, in many cases, paid translators.
Yeah.
But
That can get very
also
expensive.
the police dealing on
Yeah,
the street.
true.
You know, it's advantageous to be bilingual or trilingual, but who can be 24 lingual?
Sure. Sure. Yeah, so then they would have additional
Right.
challenges.
Yes.
Do you think the challenges, oh, again, I mean, it's probably the same answer. The challenges are bigger in Hillsborough County than in other counties?
I will say yes because of the diversity.
Yeah.
The diversity. Because we are dealing with, in many cases, new Americans, the diversity poses problems for law enforcement. Not insolvable problems, but, excuse me, please. Excuse me again. Nonetheless, expensive problems and problems that can sometimes delay investigation or quick police work.
Yeah, I can imagine. Excuse me, my turn now.
All right,
It's
very
dry
good.
under the lights, I think.
I see.
Excuse me. If money were not an issue, I mean, again, and county attorneys, like every other area of government, these days have tighter budgets that may
Yes.
mean staff cuts or
Yes.
what have you. But if money were not an issue, what would you do as Hillsborough County Attorney if you were to go back into that office? Are there programs that are on your, prosecutorial bucket list, if you want to call it that, or?
Yes. I would continue the strong prosecution program that we have always had. That is the number one function of the office. I would continue and work with the victim witness program because people involved in the criminal justice system involuntarily as victims or witnesses to crime do benefit from the services
Yes.
that
Yes.
staff can provide.
So that does need to be
And-
expanded, I assume.
Well, we have a very good group of people there, experienced, and without looking at the stats for the last 2 years, I'm not sure it needs to be expanded. More is not always better, but providing support for keeping their numbers where they should be.
Okay.
So the services are where they should be to the victims of crimes. And frankly, 80% of that is children who are victims of sexual abuse.
80%? That
Just
high?
about
Wow.
that high.
Wow. How is that different? I mean, you started back, prosecuting in the 80s.
Sure.
So how is that? I mean, are the numbers like totally wild increases
Oh,
since
yes,
then?
absolutely
Really?
correct. When I joined the county attorney's office in 1982, there was a part-time county attorney and 7 assistant county attorneys.
Wow.
The idea of a witness victim advocate was new, and we had the first one in the state of New Hampshire at that time. County Attorney Henry Spalos and County Attorney Paul Gagnon started that program with one person.
Wow.
The county attorney's office now is 20 plus attorneys, assistant county attorneys, and the victim witness program is 6 or 7 personnel. So yes, there's been a huge
Well, what do you think
increase
accounts for that? Do you think it's, I mean, I have this weirdo theory, maybe. I mean, years ago, there were restrictions on people and people worried about getting caught. And if they had, let's say, inclinations that maybe weren't so good.
Yes.
They maybe self-restricted themselves. And I don't know if I'm wrong. My husband tells me I'm a Luddite when it comes to the computer world and the computer age. But, you know, I really have this theory that now, because people can be so anonymous and do so many weird things through the computers in the privacy of their own home and so on, that some of these people are getting kind of egged on a little bit more. And I mean, even all this internet stalking and people, predators, child predators, trolling, you know, to find susceptible kids out there and so on. I mean, do you think I'm totally crazy saying that, or do you think there's some theory to that?
Oh, no, there is definitely.
You think so?
Oh, absolutely. The computer, the internet, has taken, has given tools to the child predator that never existed before.
That's what I think.
And access to children who can be sitting at home and they don't know who they're talking to on the other end of that. And they're naive, sometimes stupid, sometimes they lack parental or adult supervision. Whatever reason kids can get into on the...
So you think the computer age has?
The computer age kids.
Kicked it up a notch, a few notches.
Yes. Oh, yes, it has.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that.
Yes, it has.
I'm going to make my husband watch the show because he tells me that I'd get off on a tangent on computer issues.
Yeah, no, I don't think so at all. We see it in the state of New Hampshire, and both in the county attorney's office, other county attorney's offices, but also in the United States Attorney's Office in Concord, because if it goes across state lines, as many of these cases do, then the United States Attorney out of Concord prosecutes.
You know, I just motioned you because I'm looking. Clock is running out. That was such a good conversation. Fascinating.
Great.
That's your camera right there, and now is your time to tell people why they need to vote for you in the primary election.
I ask you for your vote for Hillsborough County Attorney to be the Chief Prosecutor. I have 10 years of experience, both as an assistant county attorney and as county attorney, in managing that office and in working with law enforcement personnel. I have tried cases to the juries, and I am seeking this office not only to do the traditional prosecution, but to work with the legislature, with law enforcement agencies and others involved in the system, particularly the courts, to find more expedient and less expensive solutions to the problems facing the criminal justice system.
I love interviewing lawyers because you tell them they got 2 minutes or 1 minute, and man, they nail it every time. You guys are good. I don't know if it's because you get used to cranky judges or what, but you guys are good.
Oh, I've never met a cranky judge.
Oh, right. I want to thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
coming.
Kathy. It's been a pleasure being here.
It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank
and best of luck in the campaign, and I'd love to have you back again.
Will do.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're wrapping up another one, and I think that you'll see have seen today that Bob certainly does know how to tell it like it is, which is what we like around here. Thank you so much for watching, and we will have Bob's email address up on at the end of the show, so feel free to contact him if you'd like to help him in his campaign. Again, thank you. You tell it like it is. Till next time, bye-bye.